Compañeros, welcome to the SQL Data Partners podcast, a podcast dedicated to SQL Server-related topics, which is designed to help you become familiar with what's out there, how you might use those features, or ideas on how you might apply them in your environments. I am Carlos L. Chacon.
And I am Steve Stedman. We are two data professionals trying to help others get a better handle on their database environments, either through this podcast, our training, or our consulting practice. Thanks for joining us on the SQL Trail. Welcome to the show.
SQL Data Partners.
So Steve, this week's episode 74, we're going to be talking a little bit about 2016 and year in review and our plans or our thoughts on what we want 2017 to look like.
I'll tell you, Carlos, 2016 has been a very busy year. I think that personally and through the show here, and you and I have accomplished quite a bit. I feel like it's been a busy year.
This kind of time of reflection, we're getting towards the end of the year. Of course, we have a few more episodes coming out before year end. But kind of taking a step back, thinking about what we've done, reviewing some of those things. Now, not everything is going to be applicable to the podcast, so we won't go through every little nook and cranny there. Taking a look at that and then kind of reassessing to see, are we on the right track? Where do we want to go? How do we want to get better? It seems like a natural time to do that kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that, there's been a lot of fun stuff.
That's right. Obviously, when I think about 2016, for me, the podcast kind of almost centers around that, particularly from a community perspective. Of course, I launched in August of 2015. That month, I had 7 episodes, and we had 202 downloads, which I was pretty happy, right? I was happy to get more than 7, right? Because I knew that more than my mom was listening. And then in December of that year, we did 1,500 downloads. You joined us in July of 2016, this year.
That was episode 50, I believe, at that point.
That's right. Nice even number. Try a different take on our podcast. And then in November, we did 5,500 downloads in November. So it's come a long way. I'm grateful, of course, to have you on the show as a co-host. I think you've added a lot to the show. And then, of course, to all the guests that we've had who've taken time out to chat with us. Never-ending pool of learning. And we're grateful to all those who have come on and shared with us and helped us know more about the product that we love.
Yep. And every week I'm amazed at how much we can learn from our guests. There's been some amazing guests that we've had on here, from the episode where we had 4 different guests and we debated the different high availability options to others where, most of them we just have a single guest, but there's still a lot to be learned there.
And I think we've done a pretty good job with variety. We've had CEOs, Microsoft people on here, consultants, just other user experiences. And of course, we can't forget about our listeners. We've been asking for some feedback, and feedback they've been giving us in the form of iTunes reviews or leaving comments on the podcast page.
And I know each week as we go through this, you and I are making different decisions on how we're going to do things. And sometimes we're just guessing there, or we're trying things. And when we can get that feedback, either positive or negative, from our listeners, it just sort of gives us some input so we can make better decisions and guide what we're going to do with the podcast going forward.
And of course, podcasting isn't the only way we've been reaching out to folks. And I admit that I've stepped back a little bit more in this area, but I know presentations is another area that we've done quite a bit in.
Yes, I know I've been busy in that area. The first presentation I did this year was at the Bellingham SQL Server Users Group, just our local past chapter. And I gave a presentation there on TempDB, and it was titled TempDB, Do This and Don't Do That. And it covered a bunch of things about performance tuning your temp database. Now, that was a lot of secrets fun, But it was sort of the warm-up for SQL Saturday when I presented at SQL Saturday in Redmond in April, where I gave that same presentation. Had a pretty good-sized room there, and had a good time sharing a lot of sort of the secrets behind what happens with TempDB and how to tune it, how to make it faster, what your VLFs mean, those kind of things. I guess it was in May, you and I did a webcast-type presentation on database corruption. And database corruption is one of those topics that I guess is near and dear to my heart because it's such an important thing, and it's one of those things that I specialize in. And I know that came out of what I did the year before with the Database Corruption Challenge. That presentation has evolved, and I ended up presenting it at PASS High Availability and Disaster Recovery virtual chapter meeting in September. That was a lot of fun, and I kind of considered that my warm-up for PASS Summit in October, where I presented the When Database Corruption Strikes session, and there were somewhere, I don't remember the exact count, 150 to 180 attendees there, and the room was pretty full, and it was the last session of the conference, but it was a lot of fun. I got to share some of my knowledge on database corruption. And then another area that I got into a little bit on presenting was around the Centricity Healthcare Users Group. And this was a users group around the Centricity product, which is what doctors use for managing patients. I did the SQL Server performance tuning for Centricity Healthcare, where we went in and showed people how to make their SQL servers perform better, specifically around using that Centricity product. And that was in Austin, Texas, in October as well. So October was a busy month for me.
The other big thing, and when I think about 2016 that I put together, and I'm actually happy to announce that this is really just a recent thing. It's finally published. Miracles do not cease, compañeros. And my book, the book that I wrote last year, actually has finally been published. So interesting. Well, I think it's an interesting story behind it. My family and we wanted to see if we could live in a foreign country, and we were considering moving outside of the United States, at least temporarily, like at a year at a time, kind of a thing. And so my father's from Costa Rica. We have lots of contacts there. I've been to the SQL Saturday lots of times. And so that made the most sense for us to go and do. And so we were down there for 2 months last year. Anyway, some things didn't quite work out client-wise. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do with my time? And I decided to write this book. And when I thought about the things that I could write, of course, we have so many great writers and bloggers and, speakers, right, in our community. I thought, okay, well, let me try something that I feel that I'm very, very comfortable with, kind of a beginner topic. And that's just basically basic SQL. I'll never forget when, I graduated in college. I'd taken 2 database classes, hated both of them, didn't want to do anything with databases. But it kind of started working with databases professionally because I was a network person. And again, like most of us, a database is going to come our way eventually. And I can remember one of my coworkers getting down on a piece of paper, drawing 2 circles that overlapped, dogs in one circle, cats in the other, and taught me about left and right joins, left, right, and inner joins. Wow. And that's just never left me. Right. That idea. And I thought, you know what? I struggled with it. Not to say that I'm, super smart or anything, but, I had been through college in a technology field. It's something I didn't quite understand. And I thought, that's something that I can share with other people. And so we went together, put together the book. And then, again, through stops and starts along the way, it's finally published. It's available on Amazon. And again, probably for most of our listeners, it's going to be below what you're looking for as a reference. However, I am going to ask a favor for everyone, and we've made the book available for free. So if you're a dedicated listener and you're listening here on December 14th or 15th, and if you go to Amazon.com, of course, we'll have the links on the show notes at SQLDataPartners.com/podcast. You can click on episode 74 rather. And get the link to Amazon. But if you search Zero to SQL, the name of the book is Zero to SQL in 20 Lessons. You can download the Kindle edition for free. And So I'm going to ask a favor of everyone. If they'd go out, download it for me, and then let me know what you think, preferably on a review on Amazon. And so it will be available for free. There's some limits as to what I can do on Amazon to making it available for free. And so I chose those 2 days. So Wednesday the 14th or Thursday the 15th. Kindle version will be available for free.
One of the things I really love about the Zero to SQL book, Carlos, is it helps me answer a question. Because oftentimes when I'm working with clients who may not be super familiar with SQL, I get the question a lot of, well, what's a good book to start with if I want to learn SQL or I want to give it a try for the first time? And I've never had a really good answer to that in the past. I mean, there's a lot of them out there, but I don't know, none of them I felt real super comfortable with. This is perfect for beginners. And I think that this one is great. If people ask me what I can look at to start learning SQL, I just recommend the Zero to SQL book.
For those compañeros who are listening, of course, again, the Kindle edition will be available for free on the 14th and the 15th of December, 2016. We can make it available for 99 cents. That will happen. I'm going to try to schedule that so that it will be available until December 21st. If you kind of missed that free window, it will be available for 99 cents. Then it's only a couple of bucks after that. But again, if you find that you've enjoyed it and want to pass it around or give it a review on Amazon, of course, I'd appreciate it. So kind of in support of the book, I know I've mentioned it on the podcast before, just kind of to go and see. But so the website Zero to SQL is also up. And that's kind of in support of the book. Not everything from the book is on the site. But again, we'll be talking a little bit more about what 2017 looks like. I'll circle back to that, but zero2sql.com is the website for the book.
Well, the next thing on my list for achievements this year was the Database Health Monitor application. This year I had 5 releases, sort of staggered throughout the year, and I've got one more coming between now and the end of the year. Maybe later this week, maybe early next week.
So for me, the Database Health Monitor, this was really my first year of getting into it. I had seen it before, but for whatever reason, just didn't download it, which was silly. And so now, of course, getting into it and using it, find it extremely helpful, particularly for a free tool to be able to monitor, all my environments and get some insights there. And then with information, that's the other probably the thing that is the unsung hero, is the ability to then click on the link and look at additional information if you're not quite sure what something is.
Yep.
The amount of time that it takes to put all that together, it's impressive.
Yeah, I know I spent a lot of time working on the documentation when you click the link to go through the databasehealth.com website to sort of tell people or explain what's going on behind some of the different reports. The other thing, a couple other areas that I focused on a lot this year was on the Quick Scan report, which is the report that goes out and does a quick analysis of what's going on with your SQL Server and then just comes back with a list of recommendations. That's one that earlier in the year I did quite a bit of enhancements on expanding different checks, different things there. Added support, of course, for SQL Server 2016 as soon as it came out, and made sure that everything worked well with that. And then I added a batch of new reports also this year that were built around SSRS and performance tuning SSRS, where through the Database Health Monitor, you can, if you click on one of the report server databases, it will tell you things like what's your slowest reports and which reports take time and which are the most frequently used SSRS reports. So if you're managing an SSRS instance, that was one of the big enhancements, was that Database Health Monitor can now give you a bunch of insight into what's really going on with that SSRS configuration.
Getting those insights and those reports are super nice. In certain instances, we are asking, for an email. You're asking for an email there, but that's ultimately so that you can send them some additional information about how to use the tool and make sure that they're getting up to speed well.
Yep. And the Database Health Monitor is a free tool. It's something I've built over the last 5 years, just from things that I commonly do every day, managing databases. And I think whatever we do going forward, there will always be some free version of it to some extent that we keep out there. Now, another thing that's happened with it that's coming out in the next update is some new branding. And if you visit the databasehealth.com website, you'll see some new branding, new looks, some new logos out there. And that's something that Carlos helped with on getting a new look and feel that to maybe bring the Database Health Monitor up more up to date from the graphics design side of things, and that has been added into the Database Health Monitor. And the next release I do, there'll be some new branding, new logos, and things like that in there.
Yeah, I mean, as what I think, and I look back at 2016. Of course, this is an addition. I mean, these things that we've kind of talked about are all in addition to the work that we have to do to, provide for our families. And as I think about this effort, as we switch gears and start talking about 2016, one of the things that I've decided to do is actually to nominate you as an MVP. I think you've earned it, and I think Microsoft would be wise to recognize your efforts in the community.
Wow. Well, thank you. And I've personally have gained a lot myself from the SQL community, and I just love to do what I can to give back. And I think that's one of the reasons with Database Health Monitor that we've done so much with that and kept it free for so long, is that I just love giving back to the community because I personally have gained so much from the SQL Server community.
And so as we switch gears to looking ahead at 2017, one of the first things I think we can talk about is that Steve and I are going to continue to work together. Of course, he's been a great co-host, but even in our businesses, we're starting to do more projects together. And whether that be database assessments or helping with performance tuning, we're going to be talking a little bit about corruption as well, but kind of working together in tandem to put together some business processes. And then, of course, the technical aspects. Those are something that
We'll expand on.
I'm really looking forward to in 2017 is to continuing or fostering a relationship with you.
Yep, and I think that's something that we've been doing that a little bit over the last couple of months, a few projects here and there, and to be able to expand on that and see where that goes in the next year is something that I look forward to. Seems very exciting to me. Another item on our plan for next year is, at least on my plan, is to revamp the book that I wrote a couple years ago on common table expressions. This was something I spent about a third of a year working on, and
it's amazing how long it takes to put all that stuff together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was one of those things that right around the time I got it done and put it out, the publisher I was working with started having some trouble and ended up changing strategy on where they were going forward, and they're not really even doing much in publishing books anymore. So I've still got all the rights to that, and that's something that I would like to get an update out to it that a little bit more modern, a little bit more up to date, and a second edition of the Common Table Expression book.
Yeah, and since we've kind of gone through this process with the Zero to SQL book, we're hoping that we can apply some of this and continue to put out some other content. And that CTE book is one of them. On my side, of course, we have the Zero to SQL book is out. The Zero to SQL site is there. I'll be looking to add some additional training, some courses. We've been kind of playing around with video. Of course, at least I have a face for podcasting, right? Which is why I've been hesitant to dive too much into the videos. It's just a lot of extra work, but we've been kind of doing some background things to put ourselves in a position to start doing videos. And so hopefully in the next year, we'll start to see a little bit more of that as well.
Another thing, speaking of podcasting over the next year, that we would like to do is to expand on the podcast a little bit. I know we did the performance tuning minute for a while, and it never ended up being a minute, but it was much longer, it seemed. And we're doing that for a while on a few of the episodes, and we decided to break that out into sort of a performance tuning episode. And our idea would be maybe we do a second episode maybe every other week during the week where we just talk about performance tuning and things you can do to make your databases run better.
Yeah, that's right. I think we kind of ran into just a planning or a timing issue this year. Several things just kind of came onto our plates. But that is something we'll be looking forward to doing 2017. We've gotten lots of feedback, again, about the format. People like the in-depth versions and some of the things we have been able to do that there. So we'll looking at adding or sprinkling in either some extra episodes or just episodes with you and I talking a little bit more about those features or those components will be something we'll add to the podcast episode list.
And I think that'll be a lot of fun, and I look forward to it. So another item on the list, and this has come from my database corruption presentations, is several people have said you should do this as a pre-con, either as a half-day or a full-day session on working with and dealing with database corruption. And thinking about it, every time I give a presentation on corruption, I always wish I had about 4 more hours to present, just because there's so many things you can cover and show there. So we've decided we're going to take the corruption presentation and expand on it and turn it into something that we could do as a pre-con. Hopefully at SQL Saturday or Past Summit or other conferences like that. So if anybody is hosting those type of things and is interested in doing a pre-con or having us do a pre-con there, we'd love to be involved with that.
Yeah, that's right. And I think even for user group leaders, as you start planning your 2017 schedules, of course, if you're interested in a remote presentation, we can look at doing that, or well, Steve really, because he'll be the one doing that, the heavy lifting there. But we can schedule that as well to help support you in that group if that's something you're interested in doing. And we promise that we won't go for 4 hours.
Right. And as far as the like a users group or a past chapter meeting, I set a personal goal to do 12 of those in 2017, to present at 12 of those, either in person if I happen to be in the right place, or remote, which is probably more likely based off of where I live, to be able to present and on database corruption or on other topics as well. So if there's any chapter leaders out there, just get in touch and let me know, and I'd be happy to present.
So one of the other previous episodes we put together our SQL Server checklist, and there are lots of things to consider there, and we put it out, and we started sending it to people and asking them for feedback. And we were extremely happy with the response. A lot of people downloading it, saying, hey, this is interesting. Hey, what about this component, that other component? And so one of the things we're looking at for 2017 is actually increasing the community involvement with that checklist and making so that everyone can contribute to it if they feel so inclined.
And to do that, what Carlos has done is put it out on GitHub and made it available so anyone can get there, can sort of download or get access to the source list that we end up compiling into the Word document that we use or PDF that we use. And if you'd like to contribute or update or add to any of that, it's available on a GitHub in an open source format. I think, are we using the MIT license on that?
Yep. Yes.
So, and I believe that makes it available free to use for anyone, free to change, free to update, as long as we get attribution that this came from us originally.
And so we've started with just text files. We thought just from a markup perspective or editing, emerging perspective, for those of you who have done source control in the past, it'd be a little bit too hard to try to keep that in the Word documents. We've broken them up into the different sections in text documents. So we hope that makes it easier just to be able to to pull down, make changes, push back up, and then of course we can merge in your changes as we go along. So that is under the SQL Data Partners repository. So if you're out on GitHub, you can search for that. And we'd love to really enjoy seeing what, if anything, becomes of this. And of course, we know that we have things that we'll continue to add to it and refine that process. And so we're excited to see how many of you in the community would be interested in contributing to something like this.
One thing we haven't done with that install checklist yet is that we probably should do is add a contributor section where if you're in there and adding or updating or changing things, that you can put your name in the contributors list. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's true. That we should definitely start doing that once. We'll look to get that set up, and we will probably have some more offline, not on the podcast, but have some instructions or some thoughts around how you'd go about contributing if that's not something you've done before.
Other things we've got planned for the next year, Database Health Monitor. That's one of those things that I think next year will be year number 6 that I've been working on it, adding to it and expanding on it. And I will continue to do the same thing, continue to add, expand, grow, add additional features. When people send in bugs or feature requests, doing what I can to get those things fixed or taken care of. And just plan to keep growing that, giving back to the community as best we can there.
Yeah, and that's been fun, again, to kind of get in there, get my hands on it, and also then try to solve problems with it. So switching gears slightly, at least for me, one last thing on a kind of a personal note is one of the things I'd like to do in 2017 is I need to get out a little bit more, just from a personal health perspective. I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my entire life. Not that I'm, extremely overweight or anything, but I know I need to get out, exercise a little bit more. I actually used to referee both football and soccer. And so 2017, I may actually look at picking one of those back up. Not a huge fan of playing basketball, and I can't run. Running is just boring to me. So I need to have something else that I'm doing while I am running, and refereeing was a good way to do that. But I am hoping that I can get out a little bit more, maybe see fellow compañeros out there, and improve my health at the same time.
And I think on that point, I have similar goals, not to referee, of course, but to get out more. I have a Fitbit, and I use that every day, and I have daily step goals. And earlier in the year, I had some problems with my feet I had to deal with, and I reduced my step goal at that point. And I think I'm at a point now where I can ramp my step goal back up to hopefully from around 10,000 steps now to maybe up around 20,000 steps a day, which is what I used to do. And I know that for those other SQL DBAs and programmers out there who have a Fitbit, I know I've competed with some of you in Fitbit challenges. If you want to, if you're not on my Fitbit friends list, feel free to look me up or make contact. And I want to do more Fitbit challenges. And these are basically challenges that are either 1 or 2 days or an entire week, where we see who can get the most steps, who can do the most walking. And I think that's one thing that really motivates me is when others come along and challenge me, and then push me to go even further with what exercise I can get for that day.
And we'll have to come up with some special prize for those who beat you at the Fitbit challenge, Steve. I feel like it's only appropriate that we honor their commitment.
Yes, but we need to be careful because
with a t-shirt
there are some who keep me stepping and some who can usually beat me every time. But we'll see how that goes.
Well, ultimately, right, I think everyone's looking forward to the new year. I've seen lots of memes out there about, what an interesting year 2016 has been. Be interested to get, compañeros, your comments, thoughts on what the new year will bring for you. Some of you might be starting new jobs or recently started new jobs or looking to start new jobs. And so, of course, we'd be interested to hear what your plans are, what your thoughts are, and, of course, feedback on the podcast or the things that we're doing, the Database Health Monitor, among others.
That's our list for the big accomplishments in 2016 and where we're going to go with 2017. So I look forward to next year being a great year.
That's right. And if you've hung in this long, you are a true compañero. And thanks again for listening to the show.
You can find me on Twitter at SQLEMT.
I am at Carlos L. Chacon. Of course, feedback using the SQL podcast hashtag. If you leave a review on iTunes, of course, we will make sure it gets mentioned on the show as well. You can even just leave a star review. You don't even have to say anything in the text if that's an option, if you'd rather not. That's going to do it for this episode, compañeros. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the SQL Trail.
SQL Data Partners.